Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, where each episode we bring you a fresh and insightful interview featuring one of the film industry's top directors, conducted by one of their peers. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode takes us behind the scenes of director Lynne Ramsay's new thriller, You Were Never Really Here. Based on the novel by Jonathan Ames, the film tells the story of a traumatized veteran who tracks down missing girls for a living. When he takes the case of finding the daughter of a rising politician who's running for the Senate, he uncovers a conspiracy that may lead to his awakening or his death. In addition to You Were Never Really Here, Ms. Ramsay's credits include the feature films We Need to Talk About Kevin, Morvern Collar, Ratcatcher, and the BAFTA award-winning short, Swimmer. Following a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in New York, Ms. Ramsay spoke with director Maggie Greenwald about filming You Were Never Really Here. During their conversation, Ms. Ramsay discusses her process of reduction when creating an economic and lean shot list, her desire to mimic the propulsive feel of the source material, and how, in today's cinematic landscape, omitting violence can make it more potent.
Okay, this is on. I could talk to you for about 5 hours about this film and about your work, and we don't have much time. Since we have a room full of directors, I'm going to go right to what I'm fascinated by after seeing this film and being familiar with your other work and reading the production notes, which is your process. In the production notes, you say while you were writing the film, you were living in Greece, and your cinematographer came to visit, and your sound designer came to visit. So, as a writer-director myself, I know that we begin the process of directing in the writing, but that sounds like quite an incredible beginning. So, my question is, also in the notes, you seem to have an incredibly rigorous and detailed preparation where you know exactly what you're going to do, and then you come in and you do many other things. So I'd like you to talk about how that works and how that works with your crew and your discoveries that make you change everything as you go.
Yeah, well, this was a really... I wasn't even finished the script when it went into production. It was that, Joaquin had a window of 2 months, and he phoned me up and said, "Do you want to do it? Can you do it now?" And I was like, "Oh my God!" And I think he thought I'd say no, so he could get out of it, But I was like, he was pinned. I put his picture up before I even wrote a word on my screensaver, and he's quite a choosy guy, so I didn't know if I could get him, but I just think telepathically willed him into the movie or something, So I was still finding the ends because the book didn't really finish either. It was only published in France. Jonathan was going to go on with it. But I wrote the first draft in spec. I was sent it by a production company who worked with Jack Odiard called Why Not? And a development person there I knew there, she knew I loved genre, and she says, "I think you might like this," and she sent me it, but they didn't have the rights, so... And I didn't know if I could do... I've never done an action movie. I've never done a pure genre movie. So I kind of thought, well, I'll see what I can do with this. And was quite happy to just see where it went. And then, I was living in Santorini in a village called Ia with no cars. And it was in the winter, and there was the internet's crap, and the electricity breaks down every Friday. And, you have to hang over a cliff to use your phone, you know what I mean? So it's a brilliant place to write, it's, And so there's one cafe open overlooking the volcano, and, it was like, people played chess there and all that, So it was just an amazing kind of, space to write in. And 4 weeks later, I had the first draft. But I got my DP and also the sound designer and Johnny Greenwood's really up to speed, so they informed the writing as well. So it was a bit of a different process, like getting people involved. Like, I didn't get the DP involved just as we were just about to shoot or anything like that. But I also knew him for 20 years, so he knows my images inside out. But because I don't think if I hadn't done it that way, I don't think I would have been able to, because we only had 6 weeks prep and 29 days to shoot. So the fact that I'd done all that work in the script earlier was in the DP and, Paul Davis, my sound designer, were really on top of that. Where I wanted to go with it was really how I could do it in that short period of time. Yeah.
So the script in the notes said it was 90 pages, which I suspect means it had a lot more dialogue than it has now.
Well, actually, once I knew I had 29 days to shoot, I think the script is a little bit longer, but I had to cut 20 pages out in prep, while we were shooting it. So kill a lot of darlings, So
but also you ended up with a 97-minute film anyway.
Well, that was the pleasure of working from a short novella was I think James L. Cain, it had that kind of vibe where, you have this short thing that you can embellish. Whereas We Need to Talk About Kevin was nearly 500 pages, and it was a book of letters, so it was really difficult, and that was a completely different, that was almost edited on paper to get the money to get them to make the movie, So it gave me a lot of room to kind of go where I wanted to go, and I always said to Jonathan Ames right at the beginning that I've never done a straight adaptation and I'm going to take it my own way, but, I think I was told him I wanted to keep that propulsive kind of page-turner quality because I read it in 90 minutes, which is the same length as this film. Yeah.
So can you talk about your process of visualizing the scenes, shot listing with your cinematographer, and then you say, and then I change everything, and then I keep looking for something better and looking for something better and looking for something better. And what does that look like on your set when Lynne says, I've got something better?
Well, every day, even though we knew this film, I mean, the opening of the film is exactly as scripted, and many scenes are, but there was a lot of brainwaves in the day as well. I'm not the day, but in the prep, for instance, I thought we'd have 4 days for some of these action sequences, and then I realised I had a day or half a day, and it was I had to be pretty economical and lean. So it was a process, a sort of, reduction in a way. It was the DP and I, we'd be up at 4 a.m. sometimes. It was a kind of puzzle. It was we won't, try to be clever about knowing that if we tried to take on too much, we were never going to really do that. And then kind of thinking about the psychology of the character for those sequences led to a logic within them. And I was watching a lot of stuff, trying to understand the nature of violence on YouTube and stuff, and that's how that surveillance thing came about. It was plus I felt he was really mechanical at that point. But it was a really risky thing to do because I've never had reshoots, and then every time a director tells me they've had reshoots, I'm really jealous, because I've never had that.
I never had them either. Lynne's talking about this scene in the brothel, which she had wanted to shoot for 4 days. And it's one of the most incredible scenes of violence I've ever seen. It's absolutely riveting and incredible. Can you talk about the way you conceived the violence? Most of the scenes, the violence is we're anticipating it and seeing the effect of it, not seeing it actually happen, which is now pretty standard in most ultra-violent films. And yet yours was more brutal and terrifying and cruel than most violent films I've seen in a long time.
Sorry. But,
no, thank you. I think it's time for violence to look horrible instead of romanticized. Thank you.
Well, a lot of people are saying, it's such a violent movie, but they'll watch a movie that's got 150 people killed in one scene, and I think because it's a kind of much more sort of, cartoon kind of, almost, it's a movie thing to do. It's almost like explicit violence has become quite banal. So it's funny when you omit stuff, how much more potent that can be. I don't think that's set new. I think silent movies did that really well.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I thought about it as a second kind of a script. The script to the violence for me was, it's very mechanical, hence the surveillance cameras. It's very in and out, almost, you know, like where he's at that point. And then it becomes more personal. Like the tooth pulling thing wasn't in the book. He was actually shot in the leg. But Joaquin and I thought the limping all through the film would just feel like a prop, you know, kind of thing. And keeping that up, you know, the whole time, and it was much more personal. And then the mum is personal, and then it's a kind of post-violence. It's like went beyond anything, and I don't think you need to see all those guys being taken down to join up the dots. You know what I mean?
No, I thought the ending scene when he arrives at the governor's mansion was absolutely brilliant. Like, why waste time seeing him kill them again? We know he did, and just cutting to them dead was really stunning. Really stunning.
Thanks. Yeah.
Is the violence as it's edited together in the film? Is that how you shot it?
We didn't. We had about 26 setups a day. There wasn't a lot of time. I had to be very, very specific, and I try and be really specific in my scripts. But you have to be really. You also have to kind of be very present in the day. You know. Like the locations can make something different, like the space, like how it was brutally hot. It was, you know, in my imagination, I was shooting it at that nice time in New York in the fall. And then it was the summer. It was like, and I realised why everyone leaves New York in the summer. It's like, you know, or go to the Hamptons or whatever, you know, get out of town. But because it was grimy and brutal and noisy for me, because I come from this really quiet place, and that kind of went a lot into the sound design, was the fact that I'd been in this place where you'd heard nothing to you know, getting to New York and then shutting my eyes and thinking, standing under the L train kind of thing and thinking this is what hell feels like, you know. Yeah, like it was this kind of, it was so electric to work in this film, because of that heat, because of his performance it was never the same twice, and we wanted humour, and we didn't want it to be just one tone. But things like the drug dealer scene where he punches a drug dealer, he just did that, you know. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen next, you know? And so I had this really great energy on the shoot. But yeah, I had to be really sort of sure of what my shots, and oftentimes the DP and I was like, yeah, we'd nice shot lists and whatever, but it was like, okay, here's the puzzle. How do we do this in 4 shots? No, we don't even have time for that. How do we do it in 3? How do we do it in 1? You know what I mean? It was all about being lean and economical and precise, and because we had to be, you know, but also react to this amazing, crazy, insane performance. And you know, we have a film with him and his mom that's probably, I could cut a film like Harold and Maude, you know, like that's just from him and his mom as well. So there was a lot of good material. But the edit was short as well, like the shoot. It was just one of these crazy things where like getting to Cannes. I never put it forward to Cannes, you know, and then they wanted it, but it still has storyboards in it, you know, so I had to shoot this. That was another mental story, but
yeah. I've read something about the flashback scenes in the film. That's why I'm asking you about paring down to finding the essence of things, because the film feels, I mean, looking at it as a director, it feels like the most exquisite puzzle put together in an awe-inspiring way, not just visually, but the sound also is as complicated and as exquisitely put together as the images. Can you talk about the way you work with actors? One of the things that you are able to do in every film of yours that I admire and am in awe of is to have really sustained close-ups of your actors that are so alive, and that also where we can see their feelings change in them without the camera moving. And obviously with someone like Joaquin, that might not be too hard. But you've done that over and over again with children who, and you did it with this young actress, Ekaterina, Can you talk about how you create that? It's like a musical sustain in the emotional performance.
Well, I've mixed it up quite a few times with non-actors as well, non-professional actors. I mean, the kid that's in the car before he goes into the brothel, he was in the art department, and I thought he looked a little bit like that actor from The Warriors, you know, that guy that goes, "Warriors come out to play," you know. And I thought, can you come in for a reading? And he just was awesome, you know. And then, you know, Joaquin really roughed him up in that scene, and all that sweat's really real, you know. I mean, you can never recreate that with makeup. So again, that is just an awareness sometimes that someone might be good, or with kids, I just, you know, I just talk to them very, you know, straight. And I think that it's been, with Ratcatcher, I saw about 1,000 kids, and then the kid we cast had like really big ears and didn't even want to be in the movie. He was just a friend of one of the kids that came in, you know. And I'm
that other kid must have been really pissed off.
He was.
How many times? Well, that I rewatched Ratcatcher in anticipation of this, and was just in awe of the boy who plays James, and how you got that performance from him.
I've just been really lucky with. I mean, Samantha Morton was another. You know, it's hard to say
please.
cut.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the producers. The producer, and he's a really nice guy of that film. He was standing behind me. I could feel his breath in my neck, and it was because the film stock was going through the camera. So, like, it was like, you know, 10-minute mags. You know, and it was hard to call cut because she was just like mesmeric. You know, but we made
Samantha Morton starred in More Vern Caller and was exquisite as. And same kind of performance.
She's amazing, and Joaquin's much like that, and he's just extraordinary. You know, really, you know, he blew me away, and he turned up 7 weeks before the shoot as well, which was terrifying, because I had 120 locations to see, and you know, this crazy prep, and I'm like, how can I hang out? But we found a way. He lived around the corner from me, and like running back and forth, like with ideas, like, what do you think of that and this? And it was very alive, the whole film. Tilda Swinton's the kind of person that goes, can you just show my back fat a little bit, you know, that bit under the bra, because that's much more authentic, you know. You don't get many actors saying that, you know. So, and John C. Reilly is just amazing. Ezra Miller, it's just been, you know, and then, you know, I met Ezra when he was 15, and, you know, and then Ekaterina had never really done that much. And, you know, in New York, there's a lot of great kids actors, but a lot of them are like 14 going on 45, like, and she just, there was a kind of natural thing about her that Joaquin, we got her in for, and he improvised with her a little bit, and she just went along, and, you know, I felt that she kind of had something to Tate O'Neill, you know, when she was young. So, just, I don't know, like, it's hard to put my finger on specifically. It's just an instinct, and you know, sometimes mixing up the actors and the non-actors is surprisingly good, you know what I mean? Even if it can be tough, you've just got to treat it in a different way, you know. But
can you be a little more, maybe give a more specific example of the back and forth that you had, for instance, with Joaquin in the 7 weeks he was here while you were prepping, and how that might have changed? You know, it's very unusual on a modest budget film in the United States to have actors there more than a couple of days ahead of the start. So to have someone there, you know, for 7 weeks who wants to talk to you about stuff.
Well, it was great because he always questions everything. I mean, there was still like things in the script which are a bit like you know, they seem cool. They were in the novella, like he wears these latex gloves, and there was a kind of couple of, like a phone jammer thing, like kind of gadgety things. And so he met the props guy before he met me. And the props guy came out shaking, like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Because Joaquin just went, no, that's bullshit, you know. So all these props were like, it made me see that we didn't need anything like that. And also the way he was physically, he was building up like that before my eyes. I was like, he's becoming the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that shoulder, and the, you know, and I I knew he would have a beard because he was going to play Jesus afterwards in Mary Magdalene, and he had to lose all that weight afterwards. But just the commitment of this guy is astonishing, and he was putting that weight on like body armor, but I was seeing that, and so we were questioning always like anything that felt like a cliche or we'd seen before, or something that just to always keep it interesting and exciting, and so. That could sometimes that was like, to me, I was like, oh my God, I felt like my brain was going to explode. But it was great as well. It was really like informing. It was like he was a member of the crew, I've got to be honest, It was like having your DP there, but he's an actor and he's,
It's really fantastic. And I have no doubt that the depth of his performance can be attributed a great deal to that and the connection that you were able to develop and have time for peeling away all the bullshit. You describe, you changed the ending of the book. Thank you so much for doing that. In the book, Joe saves her. He's the savior. And Lynne would have none of that. So could you talk about your process with coming to that? And you describe the film, the premise of the film, as being very much about a crisis of masculinity, which is really where we are now in Western culture.
Well, we changed the whole end is different. He didn't save the girl, but he was going after her to save her in the book, and it was going to continue like that. And and when Joaquin and I were really talking a lot about this, and so to me it was always a bit of a fallible man when he drops that hammer at the end. He doesn't get the big retribution scene, and that's what happens in the novel. It was like the bit, there was he gets to the guy, there's a big speech, and then he kills him, and then he goes off to get the girl, and one thing we really felt like is that he should really, like he's kind of implodes, nothing makes any sense in the world anymore. It's like, it's not the easy black and white, I get the guy and I save the girl and I'm the knight in shining that armour. So, even though it's surrealist, I guess, it's like we wanted to give, I really felt the girl should have more agency and that in a way she saves herself. He can't even save himself, in a way she saves him. So it sort of passes the baton on, even though that trauma's been in with both of them,
Right.
So that was all different, yeah. As was like things like the mom and him, where it was much longer in the script. It was only touched upon in the book, and it was much more of an idyllic relationship. Like, he loves his mom, and
this was exquisite. It's one of the most wonderful mother-son relationships I can remember. It will stay with me forever. Particularly the psycho bit, because who hasn't wanted to do that to their mother?
well, that wasn't
even if you love your mother with all your heart.
No, that was another thing that Joaquin and I spoke a lot about, because in the novella it was very much like he loves her, and it was quite poetic and quite idealized, and we were both had this thing about when you live with your elderly mom, like you might love her, but like God, it can frustrate. That love can be really, and looking after someone can be frustrating as well, and you kind of want to kill them sometimes, or like and it gave it much more dimension, I think, all this stuff at the fridge scene when he's taking all the stuff out of the refrigerator was kind of inspired by my mum, who will keep all the food. You're like, Mum, that's been 2 months since that. You need to chuck that out, And then things like my mum watches TCM all the time, all these thrillers, and she turns them up really loud, even though she's not deaf. And so, like, I just asked Judith, what would you think you'd be watching? And people thought I was making some reference to Hitchcock, but that was the first take. It was like this amazing serendipity, and she was like, Psycho was on today, and to which he went the ee sound, which ended up costing him like 15 grand, and then it cost another 15 grand because he did it again upstairs, So that was it. But it was like, she was amazing. That just the chemistry between the two of them was quite amazing,
You could see it. It was really beautiful, and tender but not sentimentalized. It felt very real. It didn't feel like bullshit, which it could have when you have a killer man who loves his mom. That's a fine line you've got to tread to make that real and make it work.
That we felt just exactly how you said there. It's like that needed more dimension, and so it was something that Joaquin and I talked about a lot. And I really love shooting that whole section. And like I say, there is you could make a film just about him and his mom, like a kind of crazy, and it would be, one of these days, maybe in like 20 years or something, I'll do that. I'll cut that.
I look forward to it. They'll probably ask you to put it in the special features for the DVD package. I'll buy the DVD package just for that. God, I had another question. It just flew out of my my head. I wanted to talk about your palette, which is the palette of your films and the production design of your films. They all have a connection to each other. They feel like distant, like cousins, some of them distant cousins, with imagery that you bring back again and again, the drowning under the water, the wallpaper in a lot of the houses. Can you talk about how you and your cinematographer and your production designer build the palette of the film?
Well, we knew that we wanted to show kind of like the New York that you don't always see. It wasn't the Manhattan skyline, so between the production designer and the locations manager, like Tim Grimes was my production designer, and we had an amazing woman who reminded me of Bobby Fleckman from Spinal Tap, who called Sasha Springer, who found these amazing off the beaten track places. So we were really responding to that, and but this is the first film I've ever shot digitally. I actually pulled all these favors, and I got Kodak were going to give me this free stock and blah, blah, blah. But there was a lot of, producers never want to budget it up these days, even though it can often be much less money than you think. So I was going to...
Particularly in post.
Yeah. So, but having learned in the discipline of film, I'm really pleased I did, because, I was on the set of someone else's movie that's like recently, and there was people running in and out, just like the assistants and stuff. The camera just keeps running, and we're like, we can take that out in post, or we can cut that. And I'm like, oh my God, it's not, so that's having that short time to shoot, and also, we created the look. It's quite a raw look, but I did a lot of tests, and I set the grade, and the DP and I did things like we were just coming back from locations like Yonkers or something, coming back through the city, and I just shot from the window like a short film, a whole of New York, but in close up. And we cut back to that shot quite a lot, and that was just because we didn't have time to go do a lot of.
So when you're prepping, do you carry a camera around?
Yeah, I shot some stuff in prep that was in Kevin on a 5D, these raindrops and stuff on the way, when I was just going to locations and scouting and stuff like that. So again, it's just using the time really, really inventively as much as we can. And then I think, just the DP knew me so well, and that there was a dialogue there that was almost when you just kind of know someone inside out, he used to be a photographer as well. I've known him for 25 years. And so, yeah, it was, and Tim finds in these brilliant locations like the mum's house or the little stairwell with the drug dealer and stuff like that. And the space informed also the performance, so it was really just
small
people.
Spaces made him feel enormous. The narrow hallways, which you accentuated. And I grew up in New York, and it feels like that, like the walls are closing in on you.
Well, funnily enough, we saw French Connection after when I went to do the first cut, and I hadn't seen it for years. And and what's it was a kind of screening that the editor and I went to in LA, and it was an Academy screening, and it was just like really refreshing, because the first hour not much happens, but just seeing that car chase through New York was, you were just like, how the hell did they do that? You know, because it's hard with the permits and stuff like. But definitely, I think
it wasn't that hard then.
No, but because Joaquin looked like a bum or a construction worker, and there wasn't any selfie crowd to a degree, and because of the locations, because they were a bit off the beaten track, there was quite a lot of freedom, because no one thought it was Joaquin Phoenix, so that was kind of good.
Well, that's sort of one of the advantages of shooting digital, is the minimal lighting and all of that, so you can...
No, there's things I like the discipline of shooting in film a bit, i.e. don't shoot, you can shoot too much in digital, and I think...
Make decisions.
Yeah, make decisions. But also I love that the one thing, it's great at night, digital, and the Alexa's, it looks really good, but also I think it was great with an actor like Joaquin Phoenix, going back to that thing that with Morven Caller, there was a lot of film stock going through the camera, but I could keep on. It was great for the performance for me.
Yeah, I found the same thing, to just keep rolling. In the production notes, you say that you did have a very good experience shooting with the digital, but that you still feel there's something more organic about film. Can you say what that is for you?
Well, it's just, I was at this festival in Greece or somewhere like Syros, and there was a lot of cool films, and then they showed a print of Night of the Hunter or something, and also Rear Window, and it's just jaw-droppingly different. It's not as clean, and it's just got something. I think still, for me, I still love it.
It feels alive.
It does. It feels alive. Things start to all look the same these days, but the thing is, like, even if you shoot film now, the film stocks look kind of
the same.
Yeah. Anyway, so, but it just, it feels like sometimes you're going a long way around the houses to make a look like film, like through all these different processes, and you're like, just shoot it in film for God's sake, and go see the rushes in a big screen. There's nothing like that, I remember the days where just like you come and see the dailies, like, that was really informative, So just, I think I'm glad that that's how I learned, But I think it depends on the movie, Like if I was doing loads of night scenes again, and I always thought I would shoot the night scenes in the Alexa, but I thought I was trying to speak to Robert Ellsworth. I spoke to a bit, like, but it just wasn't on the table, but he shot night, I think, is it Nightcrawler, like what, half and half, like it was digital for night. And still the highlights in the day to me look a bit digital, but that's just maybe, but it's closer and closer because the film stocks are just so dull these days, they're trying to make it. But I hate when you have feeling that you can see the bolts in the set and stuff like that. Yeah. When it's so it's too much.
Yeah. We have to wrap up, but I want to ask you one question. Did you work with a single camera for the whole shoot, or did you have multiple cameras for any scenes?
No, I worked with a single camera. Like, I don't.
You don't like?
Oh, I think there was one. There was one. The scene where the gunmen, where they sing the song. The Charlene "I've Never Been to Me" song. We did get a B camera on that. And for some reason, the B camera operator and me and the DP, poor guy, he was a nice guy and stuff, but all he did was he filmed the tap dripping while the other guy was getting beaten up. And I'm like, no, just like... And again, there was like a lot of first take stuff in this, so I felt really sorry for the other guy who performed for his life, and yet the other camera was on the tap dripping, So, but I actually find it I think you just more focus when you've got a single camera, unless it's something that really requires something like a lot of different angles for an action sequence, then it can be useful, but I like the focus of a single camera,
We have to wrap up, but I hope that the success of this film affords you the money people to finally give you the keys to the castle, so you can make whatever films you want from now on, because those are the films I want to see.
Thanks very much.
Films.
Well, I think considering Joaquin doesn't do any press, he's been going to the ArcLight for the last 3 days, just turning up at the end of the cinema, the screening, or at the beginning to tell people to turn their phones off.
Do they know it's him?
Yeah, well, he's just surprised them. It's just really beautiful that he's gone down and meeting people at the screenings and supporting it. I mean, because he doesn't normally do that, so I'm really touched, But But yeah, like, I'd hoped that it would take another 6 years to make a movie, you know. And this has been such
I
a
don't
brilliant.
think so. I think this is your time.
Well, it's been such a
look
brilliant
forward to it.
creative experience, and I so enjoyed making the film. I hope some of that, came through, the energy in it, and it was just because it was so much fun. But so I'm just dying to do the next one and use that same crew again. And
Can I ask I'll ask the other annoying question. Do you know what you're doing next?
horror movie with Joaquin Phoenix, or a comedy,
Anything with Joaquin?
No, I've got a few things.
Joaquin too?
Yeah, a few things in the pipeline that we're talking about, like things I've been thinking about for a while. So yeah, it's just that I've been talking about this film for it seems to have went on for ages. I'm sick of my own probably. Sorry about this. But it's just you have to talk. You make films to do the talking, and then you obviously have to talk about it for the promotion. But I'm just looking forward to going back to that Greek island, or sitting on top of a mountain and just kind of meditating on what the next thing is. Because you guys all know, films take 2-3 years. You want to be sure it's the right thing so that you love it 2 or 3 years down the line. So I'm finding that thing now, but got a couple of ideas, yeah.
Well, E is a nice place to hang out. And
it's not bad.
Find your ideas.
The tourists have taken over it now.
Great.
So,
with your child, with your girl. All right. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thanks very much for coming.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, you can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to click subscribe so you won't miss an episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, please share, and leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.